Joining us now is Democratic Congressman Khanna, California. He's the vice chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. He sits on the House Oversight and Armed Services Committee. Congressman, thank you so much for being here. Can I just ask you, what is your reaction to how the president is talking about political violence in the wake of this assassination?
Well, first of all, every Democrat was horrified by the assassination of Charlie Kirk, particularly horrified that it happened at a university setting where you're supposed to have the free exchange of ideas. And that has been what every elected Democrat has said. I'm just saddened. I was hoping that the president would use this moment for reflection. He could talk about the assassination attempt on his own life. He could have talked about how we have violence that transcends party. The Governor Shapiro was targeted in Pennsylvania. We had the Minnesota state senator who was assassinated, now Charlie Kirk. And then Americans, we all have to do better. We have to think about how we elevate the debate, how we respect each other, how this country comes together. And I still hope he would do that. He's the president of the United States. He's going to be the president of the United States for another 3 years. We can't keep going down the road we're on.
Do you think that there are Democrats, I'm not asking you to name the name of colleagues or anything like that, but a lot of Republicans have said the rhetoric coming from Democrats about how bad things are under Republicans is incentivizing violence. Do you think that that's a fair criticism or not?
I think we all have to be careful with our words. We need to focus on the issues. You can talk about why militarizing the streets is wrong. You can talk about why the president having lawless action and not and dismantling agencies is wrong. But make it about the specific points and the ideas. I don't think we need to be hurling insult with insult. And then there's some of my people who say, well, fight fire with fire rhetorically, but Emanuel Cleaver says when you fight fire with fire rhetorically, all that's left is ashes. And there's a different way. There's the way of Dr. King. There's the way of John Lewis, which is to say that you're strong and you fight on conviction, but you fight to appeal to the bigger natures of the American people, to appeal to our spirit of respecting each other and to coming together as a nation. At our best, this country has responded to that type of leadership. I think they're desperate and hungry for that kind of leadership.
I think someone at a young age taught me the phrase, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind, which sounds similar to what you say there. Sir, one thing I want to ask you about as somebody who represents much of Silicon Valley is the role that the algorithms play in all of our lives and in creating real-world violence. This was the governor of Utah, Spencer Cox, speaking over the weekend about this. Let's watch.
I believe that social media has played a direct role in every single assassination and assassination attempt that we have seen over the last 5-6 years. There is no question in my mind. The conflict entrepreneurs are taking advantage of us, and we are losing our agency.
Is he right?
Governor Cox is absolutely right. And by the way, he's been a shining example of someone who's calling for the nation to come together and heal. But Tim Berners-Lee and I, Tim Berners-Lee was the founder of the World Wide Web, and I introduced an Internet Bill of Rights in 2017. I represent Silicon Valley. No one paid attention. They said, oh, that's a guy who represents tech. He's talking about an Internet Bill of Rights. But the reality is we need to rein in these tech companies. We need a Kids Online Safety Act to protect our children. They cannot be feeding junk to young kids. We need to have algorithmic transparency. We need Americans to control and own their own data, not to give their data to these big companies that use it then to have algorithms that feed rage and hate. And some of us have been saying this is not just a tech issue, this is a democracy issue. I hope now the Congress can actually come together and pass an actual social media bill, an Internet Bill of Rights. We desperately need it.
Sir, speaking of what happens on the internet, I did want to put up something that one of your colleagues posted on the platform X. And again, thinking about how these platforms, we've seen a spike in the mention of the phrase civil war. And then Marjorie Taylor Greene, she wrote this today, quote, "There's nothing left to talk about with the left. They hate us. To be honest, I want a peaceful national divorce. Our country is too far gone and too far divided, and it's no longer safe for any of us." What is she saying with this? What does it say about us?
Well, she just gave me a hug a few days ago when we were both moved by the survivors of the Epstein abuse. And I had a very thoughtful conversation with Marjorie Taylor Greene where she talked about two Americas and one set of justice for the rich and powerful and other forgotten Americans. And I will talk to her again because we're on the same side on the Epstein issue. We need more dialogue. But we can't, look, this is not the Civil War. The division is in red states and blue states. It's within states. You have Ohio division between Cleveland and cities and more rural areas. So this idea of splitting the union is not feasible and, of course, would be a total betrayal of our inheritance as Americans. We need to have folks who are going to think about how we find common ground, how we bring this country together. And I give actually Marjorie Taylor Greene credit for doing that on the Epstein file. Let's find other issues like that.
So speaking of the Epstein files, the estate gave more documents to House Oversight on Friday. What can you tell us? What's in them?
Well, there's more evidence of just degrading women, the just offensive, terrible jokes, crude information. But the reality is we still have a lot of the files that remain to be released, at least 99% of them. And the information that we really need is information about witness interviews, information that goes to how other individuals covered up for what Epstein did. Now, we've already had accountability. The British ambassador to the United States resigned based on the release of the birthday book. It turned out he was advocating for Epstein to get a more lenient sentence. And the first casualty politically of this whole release has been someone on the left. So this is not political. If more Democrats and left people are implicated, so be it. This is about standing with survivors. It is about protecting our children, and it's about saying rich and powerful men don't get a pass if they commit horrific acts.
All right. Congressman Khanna, thank you very much for your time today, sir. Really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you.